one of the ones that in the near term, if we're going to agree that carbon dioxide is bad, if policymakers are, think that we need to do something about global warming and that we have to cut our CO2 emissions, then to me, the only source that we have that's available that can provide fairly large increments of new electric power and do so in a relatively short time, in a relatively low cost, it's not cheap, is nuclear power. A lot of environmentalists don't like it, but in fact, we're getting 20% of our electricity in the U.S. now from nuclear, and I think that nuclear has to be part of the mix going forward if CO2 emissions are going to be a prominent issue, and it appears that they will be. I think natural gas is another option in terms of the power sector. It's being used a lot. I think it'll be used more. But I'm also a big fan of solar because I have solar panels on my house. I think a lot could be done there. But I think the key breakthrough, and it's something I talk about in Gusher of Lies, is the need for super capacity batteries. That batteries are really the magic bullet. Thomas Edison tried to come up with high-capacity batteries. He experimented with lead-acid batteries, spent about $30 million of his own money, that's in today's dollars, and spent a decade or more working on battery technology. He improved lead-acid batteries, he improved alkalines, but he ultimately couldn't get the energy density that he wanted for delivery trucks and electric cars. Gasoline was just a better fuel. But if you look at the market today for electric vehicles, but more importantly, I think for the stationary market, if you had a super capacity battery that you could use in tandem with a solar panel or a wind turbine where you could store electricity so that you could use that electricity during the night or when the wind wasn't blowing, that's a huge deal, because then those sources, which are incurably intermittent, suddenly become very viable. Further, if you look at the big coal plants, during the day, power demand undulates. It goes up in the morning when people get up and go to work, and falls during the day when they're gone, and comes up again at night when they come home and turn on the air conditioner and turn on the television. If you had a battery that could feed power back into the grid, you could level out that demand curve, and that would allow huge energy savings. So it's one of the ideas that I put forward is let's set up the super battery prize and try and come up with some real innovation to store electricity. Well, I mean, the glib answer is that electrons don't like to slow down, right? Electricity moves at the speed of light, and getting in a box is hard. Now that's a simplistic answer. It's not exactly how the electricity function works, but nevertheless, it's battery technology is difficult. It just inherently is difficult to get that kind of voltage that you need for a lot of electricity applications in a small amount of space. So battery density has always been a problem, and lithium-ion batteries, particularly when compared to, and I have a chart in my book, lithium-ion batteries are, the density is like this, then there's compressed hydrogen, compressed natural gas, ethanol, and then gasoline, and then even above that is diesel fuel. So it has a very low energy density relative to the fuels, particularly in the transportation sector that we're using right now, and that's why we don't use it very much. Let me be clear about solar and wind aren't really alternatives to oil, because solar and wind generate electricity, generally speaking. Solar is sometimes used for hot water and other things. But generally, they're not at all used in the transportation sector. So they don't compete head-to-head with oil for electricity production. But the key problems, as I mentioned before, it's intermittency. The sun doesn't shine at night, and the wind doesn't blow all the time. So, I'm one of many people. I like lights at night. I watch TV at night. If I had to rely just on solar, I'd have to have huge batteries in my house, or I'd live in the dark at night. The same with wind. Wind doesn't blow all the time. In particular, it doesn't blow during the hottest days of the summer. And so that's a problem, because people like air conditioning on those hot days. So that's the key problem that followed, and not far behind, by the problem of energy density. You have to cover an enormous area with solar panels or wind turbines to equal the kind of energy density that you get from a nuclear power plant or a coal-fired power plant. Those fit on a fairly small footprint. If you're going to get the same number of kilowatt hours of electricity generation, you have to cover multiple square miles of area in order to equal the energy concentration that you get from that coal or natural gas or nuclear-fired plant. And land is at a premium. So people don't want that, don't want their views disturbed. They don't want, whatever, the toads or the, rare species, and I'm not making a joke of it, but everything has an impact. There's no such thing as a free lunch.